Hello, welcome to 0 to 60. I've got some things to show you here, and here. So yes, the fuel system is halfway finished, and we're gonna get it finished in this video, hopefully power it up, hopefully not have any leaks, and hopefully have working flex fuel and port injection ready to go. So to give you a full recap on what we've done so far, as you can see in the engine bay here, we have a feed line here, we have a fuel pressure regulator here. Now that is boost referenced, which is what this little wire is here. Top tip, if you've got stainless steel braided lines, make sure you disconnect the battery before you do anything like this, because it will earth out, and it's not like there's fuel in there or anything. Oh wait, yes there is. And now it is quite difficult to see, but we've also got the load of fittings here which join the standard fuel line into the upgraded system. If you haven't actually seen the video on the upgraded fuel system, I'll put a link to it up in the corner, and it sort of goes through and explains exactly what is now in this car. But I wanted to sort of get a bit of a head start on doing it because I've spent 5 hours to get to this point. So it does take quite a long time, and it's not overly interesting filming. To recap what we've done here, now this is the fuel bucket that we've shown in the last video. You can see we have power wires going to the second fuel pump. So we've got a Walbro 460 and a Walbro 525 in this bucket. And the big thing that is different, and the one thing I like about the way this fuel system is being done, is we have a secondary feed line going to the front of the car and a return line from that pressure regulator, or whichever way around they go. I hope I got that right. If you're going to be doing this sort of setup yourself, the way that I got the fuel lines over to that side of the car, I took that inspection hatch off as well, and I lowered the fuel tank down about 1 inch, and that gave me enough room to slide these lines in this cavity. Well, slide the lines with the fitting. It would have been much easier if I did the fittings whilst after the lines were fed through, and that got us over to that side, and then we could easily go down to the normal sort of running point that run them up to the front. Now, while we're in this section, we have a secondary fuel pump relay. I've sort of tucked it away, but we'll pull it out. It's all wired in. I went for crimp terminals this time. I just felt a little bit better about crimp terminals since I bought a decent set of crimpers. But basically we have a power wire coming from the battery here. That is just a constant 12-volt source. There is a fuse just on the other side of the battery, which I'll show you in a second. This black wire is actually connected to the hob switch in the charge pipe. That is wired in, and it will give an earth to this relay and switch the relay on when the hob switch is activated. And this wire here is the power wire going, we've got the earth for it and the power wire going through this little stretch of wire down to the secondary pump. I'll just show you in the boot. Not that it's overly exciting, but we've managed to feed that wire that you've just shown there that comes through here, and we've got a fuse holder for it right there, and it's tucked under there, which I managed to do with a little bit of trimming. She all sits nicely, and the original cap goes on. That didn't take too long. Let's show you under the car. So hopefully you can see, if we can get some light in there, we've got the two braided lines. I also ended up feeding the earth wire for the hob switch just through here as well. It's in that little piece of conduit. The fuel line sits in the normal spot. I'm going to have to cable tie it up once we know it's all going to work. And the reason I say that is I did something that I wasn't really 100% sure on. So we needed to put we wanted to put a flex sensor into this car. And with this fuel system, I couldn't decide. I didn't have the fittings to put the flex sensor into the original fuel line. I may need to just make another fuel line to replace the original fuel line, which seems a bit redundant. I was hoping I didn't have to do that. But what I've ended up doing, I've put it in the secondary feed line. Now, it was either going to go in the secondary feed line or in the return line. I didn't want to put it up in the engine bay because there's just a lot of stuff there and there's a lot of heat, and I thought it probably wouldn't be great for the sensor because I could have put it up near the fuel rail. Now, what the issue is, well, we've got the flex sensor there in the secondary feed. Although that secondary feed connects, I don't even know if we can see it, it connects directly with the main line just up there. And again, you'll understand this if you saw the video I was explaining the system. The thing is, that secondary line won't be running fuel when the car's just idling. It's only going to be putting fresh fuel through when it's actually on boost. So depending on how that secondary pump bleeds the original or the single fuel pump's fuel pressure will be whether it's got an accurate reading for the flex fuel. So we'll see how it goes. I might have to move it regardless. As soon as it comes onto boost and the secondary fuel pump kicks in, it's going to have the right fuel in there. Just thought I'd make a note that I might have made a mistake. Anyway, this is what the underside is. The other thing I want to do is just affix everything up. We do have a fuel pump filter there for the secondary line. Now we need that filter because the secondary line bypasses the in-tank filter. All right, and unfortunately you can't really see much under here, but everything sort of snakes up and goes where it needs to go. Right, let's have a good look in the engine bay. Okay, now just to explain this a little bit further, this line here comes up from the TP, so it has both the single fuel pump and the secondary fuel pump will actually be pressurizing this line when it's all working. It goes through the fuel rail and then comes out of this side here into the fuel pressure regulator, and then that is the return line there. Actually, one of the reasons I didn't just hook the flex fuel up to this return line was I wasn't sure if this was going to be pressurized at all when the car's not on boost. So I don't know what this pressure regulator is set to. It may be set to 60 psi, at which point, or even 70 psi, at which point it won't bleed off under normal use. So there might not be anything in that return line. Again, I'm going to have to wait and see how it works, or I might just have to make another main line coming from the tank. Not the end of the world, but hopefully this gives us an accurate enough description. Now, inside the DME box, we have the flex fuel module. She's tucked down there, which is what this grey wire is. And we've also got the AIC controller there. It is an AIC1. She's old. I've wired it in following AIC and flex fuel instructions. The flex fuel does give a RPM or a boost signal to the AIC. That is how it scales the port injection based on flex fuel. It basically tricks the signal or the amount of boost that the port injection controller sees. This port injection controller is set up for O'Reilly. I think it's going to be running way too much fuel for this setup, but I'm just going to run it how it is and we'll see if we have an issue. Now, another thing I have done since the last video, I have done a walnut blast. I didn't go over the top with it. And by that, I mean, I've just cleaned the valves. I haven't spent ages cleaning the actual edges, but all the carbon buildup is all gone and sorted out. From this point, I want to basically get the fuel, not the fuel rail, the port injection manifold on. I've got to get some new gaskets, which I have hidden away somewhere. Get new gaskets on that, get it in place, pressurize the fuel line, and then bolt it up if it's all going to work. Yeah, hopefully all these AN fittings are good and no leaks. Right, let me get the intake manifold in place. Okay, so the intake manifold is on. That was a struggle. This is the first time I've fitted one of these manifolds to a twin turbo car, and everything is tight. If you're going to do this yourself, I would highly recommend having the charge pipe in there. Wasn't too bad, but remove the catch can, all the catch can hoses before you even start to try and get it in, because getting that rear fuel line in and done up is tight. Now, I sort of got it to this level and I thought I really should pressure test the system just to make sure we haven't got any fuel leaks. I'm really concerned about fuel leaks. Hopefully it's fine, but we'll see how we go. I've still got to put the throttle body in, clip the computer back up. The boost pressure line that goes to the, you guys might be able to see if we go down here, the boost pressure line that goes to the fuel reg, that is connected. We are now, literally, it is just the throttle body, and I got to spin that sensor around. Obviously, it was facing the other way for the Tingle turbo setup. Injectors are connected. What I'm going to do, now, there's no spark plugs in the car, there's no throttle body on it, so it won't fire. The reason I took the spark plugs out is just in case any of the injectors are leaking. I did actually do a video on cleaning these injectors, the port injectors, but they've been sitting for a little while now, probably 2 months, so I wanted to make sure that they're not sticking open or anything like that. So if they are leaking straight into the intake manifold, we should smell it with the plugs out. I have reconnected the main fuel pump. I did turn it on and I heard it prime. I've since connected MHD to try and make this a seamless take. So we've got MHD there, but it did prime. I heard the fuel pump prime, but there was no fuel pressure. I've got my little jumper lead here, and what I'm going to do, if we clip that on there, here we have the hob switch. So this is what turns on the secondary fuel pump, and the plan is if I basically short the hob switch, or short the hob switch to earth, it should turn the secondary fuel pump on, and then we should have fuel pump number 2 making pressure. Don't know if the GoPro's picking that up. It's making noise. Hey, we got fuel pressure. 70. Rock solid 70. So I'm guessing that's what the fuel reg is set to. Interesting. So if I let off, fuel pressure dries straight off. That is one, forgotten. Okay, so because this is using a fuel pressure regulator, it basically bleeds fuel off. It caps the maximum fuel pressure at 70, but it doesn't have because it's got the return line, fuel will bleed back. Where with the stock N54 fuel system, it'll hold pressure for a few seconds, well, a minute really. Where this, once the fuel pump turns off, it dies pretty quick. All right, well that's good, that's good. I should have definitely just put the flex sensor in the return line. I've made a mistake there. Oh well. Oh well. Okay. That's that. I'm going to get the rest of it put back together. I'll put some spark plugs back in it, and I guess I can try and start it. Oh, it's taking its time. But cannot smell any fuel, so I guess we're not leaking. I also didn't think it would hold pressure at all if it was leaking. All right, I think we're good. All right, I'm going to button the rest of it back up, and we'll do a first start shortly. All right, so the light has gone, but let's get back to it. Everything's back together, apart from the DME box, because I just want to make sure that it does work before the wiring goes off. I did flash the E85 or Flex version of the MHD OTS map. I put the plugs back in. Let's go and see what happens. Right. Ignition's still on. Okay, I did have the car on a charger as well. Okay, so if we go data logging, no, yeah, forgotten how to use it. So it should come up and show, it says 10% ethanol. Well, which would be right, we run it on E10. Excellent. That means it's reading already. If we just do an ignition cycle, I want to see if the fuel pressure bumps up. Okay, it does. It primed, but we lose fuel pressure. Let's just see if it does start. Oh my gosh, I'm nervous. It started and stalled. Better check something. What's going on there? All I can think of is the plugs were a bit oily. I'm gonna try it again. Everything looks fine. I was wondering if like the map sensor wasn't plugged in or something. I'll put the phone somewhere. I'm just gonna see if it'll start again. Doesn't want to idle. It's like it's not got a map signal. I better check some plugs. Yep, I gotta check. Okay, I think I worked it out. Somebody might have left the intake manifold loose. Whoops. Small mistake. I thought it sounded like it wasn't getting the correct map signal, and it wasn't. Anyway, let's see if it starts now. Please just work. We've got some vacuum leaks. I need to have it running, but it makes me worried. Let's see if it'll idle. You can hear it sucking. Okay, AFRs are okay, but misfiring, backfiring. Hey, a manifold's leaking. Bugger. Look at that. Bank number 1. Significant leak. Way too lean. Well, it's the next day. I'm not sure what ended up filming yesterday or how I'm going to cut this in, but long story short, the manifold was not sealing on the head. Yeah, man, it was huge. It took me 9 goes to get this to fit, and the problem was being caused by the O-rings or the gaskets that I was using. I have the ones that I was using here. Now, these were brand new yesterday. They're a Chinese set. I actually have another set of these in my car, which is why I thought they'd be fine, but they basically just protrude way too much from the aftermarket manifold. I ended up going and grabbing a set of standard aftermarket manifold gaskets, and I'll put a picture up to compare the two. Basically, these were just too tall, and I think as I was tensioning the manifold down against the head, it was basically twisting the gasket over like that and not sealing properly. But God, I spent a lot of time trying to get it to seal. I really thought it would work. They look like your normal manifold gaskets, and I guess in a standard head, they're fine. In a standard manifold, they're fine. You can see the squash marks that we've got on it on that one. So yeah, huge learning curve. If you're using these, make sure you use gaskets that suit these manifolds. I mean, yeah, I was just so confused because I'd fitted this manifold a couple of times. I've fitted quite a few standard manifolds. to my car. I'd used those gaskets before. It just took me ages to work it out. One thing I did notice, I'll put a clip up of it now, the catch can was like over half full of oil. Now I emptied that catch can probably March, but the car's only done about 5,000 Ks and it's only idled around where that catch can should only fill when it's under boost. And it got me thinking, I've never done a valve cover on it or a rocker cover. So I actually, today when I finally got the manifold on properly, I was feeling inspired and I've thrown a rocker cover on it as well. I have started it, it runs fine. Let's take it for a drive. It needs fuel. I'm going to put some fuel in it, take it for a drive. I'm kind of interested to see what the point injection is going to do because it is set up for a huge single turbo running 35 PSI. We're running OTS maps. I'm also kind of interested to see if the boost issues were caused by this rocker cover. I cannot identify any cracks, although on the head ports, I call them head ports, the intake ports where it does the PCV, the gaskets are a bit shitty. So wouldn't that be amazing if it was just that was leaking? Yeah. This gasket didn't really leak any oil, not noticeably, but it's pretty hard. Man, if that's the turbo problem, I'll be amazed. Let's take it for a drive and see. Better get it off the hoist. Alright, so I put a bit of fuel in and I accelerated away from the service station and it just misfires straight away. It's throwing misfire cylinder 1. I'll show you guys what it's doing. We'll do a log. But we've got some fuel now. It actually started misfiring on the way to the service station. I assumed it was because it was so low on fuel and it was super low. But I'll do a log because I want to see if the fuel system's working, if we're getting extra fuel pressure when that secondary pump kicks in. Let's see how we go. Right. And I've got MHD down here. Let's start the log. You guys will be able to watch it. Just get it up into some load. There's the engine light. You see we've got heaps of fuel pressure. That noise scared me then. You see we've got heaps of fuel pressure. Oh, the clicking was the relay for the fuel pump. Right. I'd be interested to know if the GoPro picked that up. The relay is open and I wanted to leave it open so I could hear it click on and off. Huh. Yeah, it'd be interesting if the GoPro picked it up. But the relay was clicking on and off then as boost was obviously hovering around the point to turn the relay on and off. Right, I'm just going to pull over, save place, we'll clear the codes and we'll head back home and we'll have a look at that log. Well, we're back. Like, looking at the AFRs, tons of fuel pressure. It has got a bit of a stutter every now and again with the idle. I'll turn it off. I'd like to delve into it and try and work out what's wrong with it, but if I do that, you guys will never end up with a video. Yeah, fitting that manifold just took way too long yesterday. Let's have a look at this log and see if it gives us any indication of what's causing the misfire. So it is storing that combustion misfires on cylinder 1. I did pull over and I did just make sure that that injector was connected properly. And the same with the ignition coil, because obviously had those out. They both are fine. I am wondering, so obviously I can't tell if the port injection is doing anything. Sorry, just got to graph a log. Okay, so we have the log here. I'm still not too familiar with MHD, so bear with me. Okay, so obviously the green line is RPM. Oh, yeah, that looks familiar. Let me go lambda. Wow. We have an O2 sensor issue. So the O2 sensor is going from 40 to 14, 40, 14, 40, 14. So the O2 sensor is cutting in and out basically on bank 1. And that would definitely be enough to instigate a misfire. We are getting some timing corrections by the looks of that. Pulling timing like a mofo as well. Which is probably, actually you can see there from, hopefully you can see there, from about 3,600 RPM onwards, the O2s just go wonky. cylinder or bank 1 O2s. It's weird that only cylinder 1 is throwing the misfire. I'm gonna delve into it, try and work out what it is. Obviously that O2 sensor's gone skew-if. Annoying. The plan with this was to go and put the 85 in it and see how it runs on the flex map, but there's no point doing that if we just misfire at 3500 RPM. Joys. Guys, I'm gonna end this video off. This has been annoying. But I am looking forward to doing some work on the 17T car tomorrow, because we're taking it roll racing tomorrow as well. So we'll do an update on that. It's just going to be a little bit of a service, but I won't get a chance to look at this till Sunday. So if you've got any ideas what it might be, hit us up below. Remember, I've had the entire intake off. I friggin' hope it's not a intake leaking again. I'm pretty confident I've got the intake sealed, but who knows with this thing. It's been a nightmare. Guys, thank you very much. We'll catch you on the next one.